So how many of you guys out there keep running into the same objection over and over and over again from buyers? Hey, I don't want to buy right now. Interest rates have gone up too high. I kind of just want to wait and see what's going to happen. I'm getting hit with it all the time. My agents are getting hit with it all the time, which means you guys probably are too. So I'm going to give you guys a couple responses to that objection that we're getting from buyers. So if we look at over the past 5-10 years, yeah, the interest rates that we're seeing now, 7%, 7.5%, 6.5%, whatever that interest rate is, it seems astronomical, right? A lot of buyers haven't seen that over the past 5 to 10 years. So of course they're going to freak out. It's totally normal. But when you zoom out and you actually look over the past 50 years, the average interest rate was 7-8%, which is pretty much where we're at right now. We're not quite at 8%, but we're hovering around that 7, 7.5, 7.75 rate, depending on the credit, obviously. So if you're talking to a buyer, I mean, they need to understand that because they haven't heard or seen that. The average interest rate over the past 50 years is around 7-8%. And so what we're seeing right now is average. It's normal. We're returning back. We're returning back to more of a balanced market, which is good for both buyer and seller. The other thing we want to keep in mind is even though that buyer may be paying a little bit higher of an interest rate than they would have been over the past 5-10 years, chances are they're going to be able to make it up on the purchase price because inventory has consistently built year over year. Inventory is up almost 30% year over year across the board. So even though a buyer may not have as low of an interest rate, they're going to be able to purchase their home at a lower price than they would have over the past 5 to 10 years. And sellers are now in a position, because inventory is up and they have more competition, that buyers can now again ask for seller concessions. And there are plenty of lenders out there that have buy down programs where that buyer can actually buy down the rate to a lower interest rate. So one thing you want to ask when a buyer says that to you, well, I want to hold off because I'm not quite sure I want to pay that interest rate, or I'm going to wait till the market crashes, or whatever that is. When a buyer says, I don't want to buy a house because interest rates are too high, we have to expand on that, right? Because what does that really mean? So, okay, I can appreciate the fact that you don't want to buy at a high interest rate. Who does, right? But what does that mean? Does that mean you have a certain monthly mortgage payment that you have in mind that you don't want to go above? What is that number, if you don't mind me asking? Let's just say it's $1,200. Okay, so I don't want to buy a home and have to pay more than $1,200 a month for my mortgage. Perfect. So, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, if we're able to get your home for you and able to help you purchase your next home right now, regardless of the interest rate and everything else, but still keep you at that $1,200 a month payment, which is what you want, would you buy a house right now? Regardless of the rate, regardless of anything else, if you can get your home right now and keep that monthly payment at that $1,200 a month, which is what you said you wanted, what would stop you from buying a home right now? Now that completely reframes the buyer's perspective because they're so stuck on interest rate, because that's what we're constantly getting hit with, right? Interest rates are up, interest rates are up, interest rates are up. But when you really look at it, if you can stick to the monthly payment that you want to stick to as a buyer, what does the mortgage rate really matter? And even if the mortgage rate goes down, you can always refinance. Okay. So when a buyer says, I don't want to buy a home because mortgage rates are too high, ask them, well, okay, what monthly payment would you like to see? What monthly payment would you like to stick to on your new home? Where would you want to be? And if I'm able to get you that monthly payment, regardless of the interest rate, would you buy? Chances are the answer is probably going to be yes. And now you have a new lead and a new buyer that you otherwise wouldn't have had if you would have just accepted their objection at face value.